welcome to the 30 Powerlist. I keep looking at those newspapers and those magazines to try and get some inspirational stories. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Salil Acharya. I'm your host for today. Today joining us, the Vice Chairman and Managing Director of U GRO Capital, Shachindra Nath. Thank you so much for joining me, sir. You've got a huge background of various financial, when you have the numbers background, do people come into the equation sometimes? Recently, we've been seeing a lot of companies facing trouble. They're called faceless companies because they have the numbers, but for them, people are just numbers. In your line of work where you're lending to so many people, can you be swayed by people, or is it just about also numbers and making sure everyone's empowered?
See, numbers are important, but no number has any meaning unless you contextualize that number by people who are running those numbers. Yeah. So our belief is the combination of this, the human intelligence and human endurance and the number is what makes our, life tick. Without that, numbers in its independent basis has no meaning itself. As I was telling you in the last episode, that's why I said humanity is in threat, because if artificial intelligence has to take over everything, the human element of it, is very difficult to predict how it would happen. While it's being saying that artificial intelligence would also be emotional by nature, I hope not, because I don't know what would happen if that happens.
The last thing I want to see is a robot crying. But when you talk about data analytics, technology, is that also something that is a tool that is being used to monitor competition, move ahead, monitor the market? Is it the most important tool for, say, U GRO Capital or any lending institution?
So, especially for small businesses, I was giving this example that 15 years or 10 years back, you can, you go to buy a fridge and it could have taken you anything from 15 days to 3 months time because there was no credit available to that. Now it is a matter of minutes when you can do this on some form of a loan and on equated EMI. So I think so the data is powering the agility and the speed, and that's why it is very, very critical. I think so it's less to do with competition or being ahead of others. It is more to understand your customer in a very fragmented and very diversified, ecosystem, and being able to do it quickly and provide and service the need of the customer. And we use the term data and technology, right? So people don't differentiate between the two.
Yes.
The data is the mind, right, which enables you to decide, and technology which helps you to execute. And that's why data and technology are two different things. And when you combine that, the most helpful thing are credit businesses in which you can accelerate to support your customers.
U GRO's got a great name. Of course, it's so apt. You'll want to grow. And when you have capital attached to it, which is the entire name, it works very well. It is the last mile for every entrepreneur, every businessman. Idea सबके पास होता है, लोग भी होते हैं, लेकिन वो पैसा नहीं होता लास्ट ऑर्डर के लिए, और उसकी वजह से you stay छोटा. You can't become bigger. So here also, what is GrowX? There's something that you have in your company called GrowX. Is this going to fill that gap of the last mile?
So GrowX is basically it is our idea of provide the credit, and now providing that credit in multiple accelerated ways. So Grow Accelerate is what we call GrowX. Now it is actually a very simple idea, but with a very complex technological and data and algorithm behind this. Small businesses, their biggest problem is not being able to get the credit when they need.
Correct.
So if I get a small order of 5 lakh rupees or a 3 lakh rupees, suppose in Indian Railway giving an order to a small business for 5 lakh rupees. Now the small business has to go and buy the stationery from the market, print it and give it to Indian Railways. Now that time he need credit. Now he can't go and file an application in a bank and go around and around. He need that credit then and there. GrowX actually has the capability. It is India's first on-tap credit, which can be dispensed on UPI, and it can be done in minutes.
So explain the process to me. If I was somebody like this, and how, in literal terms, how much time and what would I have to do to get this? If I was somebody who did not know about U GRO, and I have this need, and my family and friends have said, "Ki bhai aur paisa nahi de sakte." What is the process that they would have to do?
So you have to, through any of our digital channel, you have to come to our platforms, download our simple app, which is GrowX app, provide very few data points, which name, your KYC, and we will access your financials automatically at the back end, and immediately basis that our system would give you or set a credit limit for you, and once that happens, then you can just draw the credit and pay to anyone.
Fantastic. So the algorithm decides your credit, and then after that you can take as much as you need from there based on a certain interest.
Absolutely. Over a period of time,
yes, of course,
there is a human intervention which will help you to increase your limit with us. So the initial credit limit setup is completely by system. So there is no hassle, there is nobody who is judging you, there is nobody who is looking down upon you, because it is a system which takes your backend data and gives you the credit, and which you can pay through any method. Another other problem for the small businesses, I take a credit today and I receive my money day after tomorrow. I want to pay interest only for those 3 days.
Bilkul.
Right? And that is why we have used UPI as a mechanism to receive the credit and pay back. Right? So today, power of the UPI, you can go and buy one single cigarette or one pan also from a shop on the UPI. So the first platform wherein credit dispensation and returning the money is on UPI.
Oh, that's fantastic. Also helps accounting, makes it a lot easier. Because eventually speaking, also अगर आप businessman हो, कभी ना कभी तो if you are going to grow, you are going to need a smart CA that understands this. अगर सब एक ही platform में आपको मिल जाएगा तो बहुत easily हो जाता है आपके लिए. Since we are talking about technology also, sir, and we are talking about growth also, GrowX, what is LAS? There are a lot of technical terms जो कई बार लोग समझते हैं, हमें तो पैसा चाहिए, ये सब चीजें extra क्या है? So what is LAS?
So I think so for consumer and customer, it has little meaning. It is more. I talked about in our last episode that one of the biggest challenge outside the bank, if I have to lend money to somebody, I need money.
Correct.
Right. So this money is in combination of two forms. We raise equity capital and we take debt. Now the debt on the balance sheet has constraint factor. For a big bank, how much money it can lend to U GRO for it to lend to the end customer is always constrained.
Of course.
Yeah. So, what is banking to a small business is also a banking to somebody like us. Now, LAS is what we call lending as a service. There are two types of people, or two types of financial institutions, banks on one side and non-banks on the other side. All of us Indians go and keep our money in the banks, which means banks have the power of the capital. But may not necessarily that power of capital is translating giving credit to people. So, we as an institution are expert in giving credit. And when you partner with banks and large financial institutions, when they go and lend to the end customer through us, it becomes lending as a service, which means that a customer which needs say 1 crore rupees or 50 lakh rupees of loan, 20% of that would come from us and 80% would come from bank, and we are a service provider to the bank for our customer. So I think so that is something which RBI brought in 2019 and then 2020. And if it succeeds, you would see explosion of credit happening through fintech.
I was just going to say that if this is going to be a partnership with banks, then you will have an almost unlimited supply of money. Absolutely. And you will have the unlimited list of customers to bring both worlds together.
Absolutely. So I think so pre-2015, there was a point of time wherein banks and NBFC were competitors. Now they are collaborators. And this is changing the lending landscape and the future of India permanently. So the credit, so the total gap for credit for small business is $400 billion in India, right? So this is
that's gap. Huh?
That's the gap.
Yeah,
right?
that has to be filled.
Yeah, that we have to fill. So I think so it would take roughly around another 50-60 years to do that, but that can only happen with LAS becoming a prominent force of providing credit to small businesses.
I think the philosophy of business ideology in this country is changing. पहले होता था कि जितना आपके पास है चादर उतनी ओढ़ो. No, अभी बेड पहले बढ़ा लो, right partners करो, फिर चादर उसके हिसाब से बनाओ. I think that whole thought process has to change, which I think in the next 10 years, which is why they say India is so exciting. We keep discussing how India is overtaking economies, and the one big question is to always come, oh, it's because of the population. A small country like India that plays cricket with only 9 nations, how so many people are able to watch? When I remember Virat Kohli came in the top 5 list, they said, who is this Virat? How is he competing against Messi and Ronaldo? Because of the fact that there is a huge market. So eventually, do you see us also in the next 5 years reaching those trillions and trillions that are there, or say even 10 years as far as an economy, because of this kind of explosion? Because I think we're on the cusp of it.
So I think I'll try to give this answer in 2 ways. When COVID happened, everyone said that India and small businesses would not survive.
Yes.
Right? That was the general perception. India is the only country which not only survived but also bounced back, and especially the small businesses bounce back the fastest.
Right.
Simple reason is this: if you take a ball and you press it very hard, right? The harder you press, the faster it goes, right?
Yes.
India as a country has been pressed very, very hard for 1,000 years.
Yes.
So 1,000 years of the suppression is now opening up, and that's why we are bouncing very fast, right? And the powers which were, suppressing us are becoming weak. Their hands they become old and their hands are weak. That's why our ability to bounce back on the world is far more superior than anybody else. It is not about the demographic. It is not about, as a nation, as young people and small businesses, our aspiration to succeed and be successful is far more superior than any other country in the world.
And also we have the largest young working population, so the dependency is a lot lower. So eventually the future, when they say is ours, it really is ours. The numbers say it, the ideology says it, and actually common sense literally says it. The Powerlist continues, and this episode of course comes to an end, but this reservoir of knowledge coming across. And when I speak to you, sir, I think it's not just one industry, because what all industries have you traversed? Yes, of course we know law as well, finance as well here, but in your mind and in the companies that you work, where all have you worked to be able to have this?
So as I said that I started my career with a textile company called Garware Wall Ropes. Then I was in Banaras. I was born and brought up there, so I was very close to my hometown.
Right.
So worked in corporate industry for 6-7 years, practiced law for years, and then for last almost 22 years in financial services industry.
Wow, and the industry is richer for that. We'll have another episode, of course. We'll go delve into more the future about the population, and sometimes unemployment becomes the world over. I think it's the number one problem of 2023. It's not inflation, it's actually unemployment. And are they interconnected? Yes and no in a certain way. We'll talk about all of that and so much more about U GRO Capital, because we have the Vice Chairman and the Managing Director of U GRO Capital, Shachindra Nath with us. You can catch more of this interview, of course, on Radio City and Midday's timeline on YouTube, social media. It'll only enrich you and give you a more rounded perspective. I always say empirical evidence works. When you see the numbers and you see India's growth, you'll say wow.